You wrote an amazing book called The Price of Tomorrow. And your core thesis of that book is that innovation and basically what? Innovation causes prices to decline over time. Yet we're in a debt-based fiat monetary system that requires prices increase over time to erode real debt burden. So these two paradigms are fundamentally incompatible.
Exactly.
Could you just, that's kind of a mouthful as I say that. Yep. So as you approach someone with the elevator pitch on the thesis of your book, how do you communicate this to the layman?
Similar to how you just said, I try to get them to see that they are a participant in a global market. Mm-hmm. And as a participant in the global market, then everything they use, they choose more value. Mm-hmm. And every entrepreneur that's competing in a global market has to compete against their choices. Mm-hmm. And so, and they have to compete with what came before. So when you realize that, so you have a business, you have some business, you have entrepreneurs trying to create value, attacking that business, because the only way to create value is do something different, better than the other business, or new that changes two businesses into one, or 10 into one, like the iPhone and all of the different things. You're constantly you're under pressure to create more value. And we use the things that provide more value. It's a very hard thing to do working in the free market, because you're competing globally around other entrepreneurs that also similarly want to provide value to somebody else. And anybody who works in that environment, works for those entrepreneurs, is doing the same thing. And we're choosing what's more valuable. So how could that process not allow prices to fall? It would have to. Fundamentally, it would have to mean prices fall. And then what I saw as I was writing my book, because I'd been in technology for so long, I couldn't, in fact, I was talking about this process for 10 years before I wrote my book to anybody who would listen, because I couldn't understand why technology was becoming the base of everything. Every business was using it, becoming more and more automated. All technology is ideas in our head that we inscribe into silicon chips that then they're creating more and more value, essentially faster and faster automation and more value. And we would use the things that created more value. So it would mean as technology accelerated, or not accelerated, as it moved exponentially, while most people were measuring it linearly, then you should expect prices to fall faster and faster and faster. And from that perspective, then every person on the planet would get wealthier, even if they didn't work, because the global people working, trying to create value, would create value as a byproduct for them too. And so, but once you understand that that's what the free market looks like, and that's where that free market is going with technology, and it's moving faster and faster, then you look backwards and you say, have we actually ever lived in a free market? And you realize the answer is no. We've always lived in all the isms are versions of a control system, designed to essentially steal that productivity that should flow to you and concentrate it in other people. And so when I give the high level, I try to get somebody to see that paradox in themselves, because it's almost hypocritical that you could believe, I want more value, but my house should go up, right?
Yes.
My stock should keep going up. My house should, and those systems, one's a debt-based system, cannot allow those prices to fall broadly. Right? They can allow certain prices to fall, but it can't broadly. It has to broadly make prices go up. And it has to do that, and then because all the money is loaned into existence, and if you allow prices to fall, that money is wiped out, and it can't be paid. The debt becomes more expensive. And so I used some examples in the book, and what you'd expect to see if I was right, and it seemed pretty obvious it was right. What you'd expect to see is a massive rise of debt in the preceding 20 years, as technology moved faster and faster and faster, you should see the exact opposite in the system you live in. And that's where in the book, it was $185 trillion in preceding 20 years, out of 250 trillion total dollars to provide $46 trillion of global GDP. So you could tell that more and more debt was producing less and less returns, which is really a different way of saying we're stealing more and more from every soul on the planet at an ever increasing rate that has to keep going. And then, so that's where I start, because getting somebody to see that both things are true.
Yes.
Prices go up relative to your currency, and you should say, why is that? Is that right?
Yeah.
And what should happen is prices should continue to fall if you live in a free market.
Yes. It's funny how intuitively it makes all the sense in the world, right? And this quickly gets into a philosophy of value. So I want to ask you that, like, what is value? Because it all hinges on that word, right? It seems like we are competing to try and solve one another's problems better, faster, cheaper, right? So if I can solve a problem for you better, faster, or cheaper, then I've rendered value to you. Okay. Better, faster, cheaper solutions means, well, in general, the same solution should go down in price over time if I've been a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Now, someone could introduce something that's different, and maybe that's a different price, but then eventually other competitors will enter that market and will compete to deliver more quality at a lower price, right? This is the magic of markets, that people are competing to deliver more consumer satisfaction or value at lower and lower prices. And we all benefit from that game. But that game is somehow it breaks down with debt-based money. So what is value, and why does the game break down? Which you already kind of answered, but what is it about the debt-based monetary system that's destructive to value?
So value is whatever we determine it is, right? It's just those things that we would determine or value would create margin in a free market, right? Especially if you were first, right? You created more value, and then everybody would compete with you.
Yes.
Because it created a value, and the margin would fall and fall and fall. And you'd have to compete harder and harder and harder. And so out of this topic, in a free market, prices fall to the marginal cost of production. And
it's a big point right there.
Big point.
Yes.
Big point. Because marginal cost of production of your calculator app or other things on your iPhone is a line of code, and it's zero.
Yes.
So then what's the marginal cost of production of AI, lines of code creating other lines of code? Zero. And you could see that where things are going, if a business doesn't automate and remove all the labor with the AI, you won't use the business.
Right.
Because you are trying to get, so when you describe value, whatever it is for us that we value in that moment in time.
So it's preference.
It's preference.
Yeah.
It's a whole bunch of things. It's a construct of a whole bunch of things, but it's our decision of what sometimes we value a luxury good. Sometimes we value the cheapest good. Sometimes, so I don't think you can describe specifically who, what as a broad. Sometimes I want an experience, and I'll pay more for an experience in this moment. But it's what I decide is a value to me in that moment.
Right.
And that's and entrepreneurs all over the world, and the market is competing globally. All different ideas, all of our ideas that we could possibly imagine, is being put into solving those problems, giving us more abundance. If you really think of even silicon or what drives AI, these are grains of sand that we've turned out in our mind into things that power computers, that are in service for us. So the free market, what we really are through that process is we're abundance creating machines out of scarcity. That's what we are. We're abundance creating machines out of scarcity. And the scarcity provides the economic margin, right? To what it was entrepreneurs' new ideas and anything scarce, because there's more money there. Entrepreneurs attack and make it abundant. And so So, and then you will trade with anybody all over the world so that you can get more value, and you can't stop it. Like when you do price controls, when you do tariffs, the free market finds a way around, and like people are still buying Russian oil all over the world right now.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
You can't say because in their need, they need it and they want it and they will buy it.
Yes.
So
people follow incentives, not laws.
And so, but the crazy thing is every single, I don't think I've ever met anybody who says, no, that's wrong. Right. And so they nod their head. Yeah, that's right. But then imagine the consequences to the next statement that you actually, most people that nod their head also spend all of their time in this control system, thinking it's somebody else creating their problem.
So you're saying that there's this deep element of personal responsibility.
Well, so yes, but the cognitive dissonance of this, I think that's a spot that people get to in time. I can tell you my own journey to get there, because I don't want to impose on anybody else that they should do. So, because when you say personal responsibility, which is true, it can lend to you should do this.
Right.
I'm not saying this. The world is constructed by all of our beliefs, and it's real to us.
Yes.
Right. And my reality is just as real to me as somebody living in a different reality, reinforcing them, and their beliefs will reinforce that reality. They won't see my reality. They'll believe in theirs. I'll believe in mine. And the world's constructed of those kind of opposing, chaotic, confusing. And so I really try to be careful not to impose what I believe.
Yes.
Instead, I try to say, here's fundamental truths, and then here's a decision path that in time, maybe you'll see.
So that makes sense. Like social reality, socioeconomic reality is constructed through this consensus of varying subjective viewpoints, right? Money is a great example of this, right? People often call it a belief system, right? It's like whatever you call money and act as if it is money becomes money. So there's this heavily subjective aspect to it, but then there's also objective properties that make one asset better or worse money, right? Like there are objective reasons why, for instance, bananas aren't good money, right? They spoil quickly. They can be produced in abundance, so they're not scarce over time. So how do we reconcile these two things? Is truth somewhere between the subjective and the objective? And I agree with you. Like I don't like the word should either, because it's contra human freedom. Like you want people to arrive at their own conclusion. But then there does seem to be truth independent of all those beliefs as well. So how do we reconcile those two things?
Newtonian physics was true until Einstein physics, which was true until quantum.
So it's a resolution.
It's a resolution. Okay. It's an understanding of, and these layers would have different truths.
Yes.
Same thing in you, in a market. Sometimes somebody brings something into your insight that is a 0 to 1 moment in you, and you're never the same. In fact, that's actually how I see the world and any person that I'm interacting with, and actually not even interacting with. We can't help but collide into people. And when especially if we really care about somebody, we both come away changed, right? And sometimes that opens up insights that you never knew before,
right? That
completely change you.
Yeah.
If I even think about my own journey in Bitcoin in 2017, like you said, I was in Bitcoin, but not really. It was through the writing of my book. It was in 2018, 2019 that I went and discovered greater truths that were always there.
Yes.
Right. But I didn't see them.
Right.
So I was operating in a different world. Yeah. And as I discovered that, went deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's just, I would say the same thing in where I am today, trying to go deeper and deeper and deeper, and trying to resolve things, the incongruence, the hypocrisies that I've had, right? The cognitive dissonance of going from one system that I thought was responsible for my safety and everything else, and I believed in, to another system. It's a challenge for people to go through.
Yeah.
Which is why I also understand why this is going to take time, and most people, they'll resist it. They'll take time. And if you just try to have a conversation with somebody where you're yelling at them and they're yelling at you, right? There's not a lot of thought exchange where people go deeper, right? And an introspective question where is the natural state of the free market deflation? Because once you actually have that in your mind, if that's true, and you nod your head that that's true, and I think most people nod their head because it's actually it's a way bigger deal. They just, when you know a fundamental truth, you naturally resonate with it. And so then they're constantly fighting that and say, okay, well, why? And it allows them to discover it.
No, that's okay. So there's something here about beliefs and your identity, right? That your beliefs are the ingredients to your identity, or they're foundational to your identity. So when you ask these deeper questions, and when we say deep, it's like something that's more fundamental, more independent, more things in reality are dependent on it than vice versa, that it can challenge people's structure of their identity.
Sense of self.
Yeah, their sense of self actually gets called into question.
Their friends, the people they believe, all of their, and those are challenging times that either kind of force you to go to admit you were once wrong.
Yes. And therefore deconstruct
that.
Yeah.
And sometimes leaving your group because of in-group bias and all of what feels like love and belonging, which we've talked about before, we could go into. Sometimes leaving that group is it's easier just to put your head in the sand and not deal with that. It's just a really hard cognitive dissonance for people to go through.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.